What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Brad Browning here. I'm a marriage coach and author of the best-selling Mend the Marriage program. In this video, I'm going to share with you several tips that will help you prevent and diffuse arguments with your spouse. For more tips on repairing and improving your marriage beyond what I'm about to talk about, please watch the full video on my website, marriageguy.com. And just remember that a marriage crisis doesn't just go away on its own. So if your relationship is in jeopardy of collapsing, please visit marriageguy.com and watch the full video there before things go downhill any further. Okay, so I'm going to begin by talking about a few ways to prevent arguments with your spouse. A little bit later in the video, I'll talk about what to do if you find yourself in a heated dispute with your partner. But these first few tips are designed to help you avoid getting into arguments in the first place. Tip number one, pick your battles. Humans are imperfect creatures, and your spouse is no exception. It's inevitable that your partner is going to do or say certain things that are going to irritate you. So it is important to take a step back and really evaluate what's worth fighting for. Is it really a huge issue if your husband forgets to water the plants? Do you really need to get into a screaming match every time your wife leaves a few dirty dishes in the kitchen? At the end of the day, you need to decide what you can live with and what's worth battling for. Tip number two, apply my 30-minute rule. One of the most effective methods that I teach to my coaching clients is what I call the 30-minute rule. It's a pretty simple concept, really. Anytime you have a complaint or an issue that you want to raise with your spouse that may lead to an argument, wait at least 30 minutes before you broach the subject with your partner. And as simple and dumb as this may sound, you'd be amazed at how often it can prevent an argument from happening. Taking 30 minutes to think things over before bringing up a complaint or an issue allows you to cool down, step back, and take a look at the bigger picture. Sometimes you may realize that whatever it was that you were upset with isn't worth an argument at all. And other times it may just give you time to think about how you can discuss the topic with your partner in a civilized, non-confrontational manner. Which brings me to my next point. Tip number three, work out a plan in advance. If you use the 30-minute rule that I just talked about, and I strongly recommend that you do give it a try, then you'll always have at least half an hour to think about what you're going to say before you dive into a heated discussion with your spouse. I always suggest deciding exactly what you're going to say to your spouse in advance. And if you and your partner have serious problems with frequent arguing, then it may even be worthwhile to write down what you're going to say. If you stick to the script, you'll help to avoid saying something that can turn a civilized discussion into a major argument. And in addition to deciding in advance what you're going to say, also think about what your ideal outcome would look like. What are you trying to achieve? How are you going to achieve it? You should enter any potential argument knowing the answers to both of those questions. Tip number four, use the 3-sentence rule. When you've got something on your mind and you want to just vent those frustrations to your spouse, limit yourself to a maximum of 3 sentences total. This will ensure you don't go into a rant that escalates the discussion as soon as it begins, and it'll keep you focused on the specific topic at hand. So let's say, for example, that your spouse constantly makes excuses to avoid social gatherings with your family. Now, understandably, this might upset you and you might want to bring up the subject with your partner. Using the 3-sentence rule, you might say something like, "Look, I know you don't really enjoy hanging out with my family, but they're important to me. I'd really like it if you would please try to come out to our family get-togethers more often. Even just 2 or 3 times per year would really mean a lot to me." And that's all you need to say to get your point across, really. And by keeping it brief and using a polite, non-confrontational tone, you can keep emotions in check and usually avoid a more serious argument. Tip number 5, begin with I instead of you. A Harvard professor who specializes in marital conflict suggests using the word I whenever you're making a complaint to your spouse. Now, this one is especially useful when you're saying something that your partner might call nagging. So if you have a complaint about something your spouse is doing, leaving dirty dishes in the kitchen, for instance, then start your sentence with I when you broach the subject. As an example, you could say something like, "I know you're busy in the mornings, but I'd really appreciate it if you could put your dirty dishes into the dishwasher before you leave for work." And this may not seem like a particularly important strategy, but it has been proven to reduce the likelihood of a discussion turning into a full-blown argument. Okay, that's 5 tips to prevent conflict in the first place. But what if you already find yourself in an argument with your spouse? Maybe you're in the fight because you didn't follow the tips that I just mentioned, or maybe your spouse was the one who began yelling and initiated the argument. Either way, let's talk about some ways to diffuse the conflict and prevent it from really getting out of hand. These are some of the things that make up what I call my dispute diffusing system. It's a set of techniques I've developed based on both academic research and my own experience working with coaching clients facing a marriage crisis. I'm going to share a few of these techniques in a second, but I encourage you to watch the full video on my website, www.marriageguy.com, for more free info on building a healthy, conflict-free marriage. That's marriageguy.com to watch that video. Okay, here are 3 things you can do to prevent an argument from getting out of hand. Number 1, go to bed angry. Honestly, if I could bust open a single commonly accepted myth about relationships, it would be the idea that couples should never go to bed angry at one another. Quite frankly, that is downright terrible advice. Sure, no one wants to go to bed mad at their spouse, but the simple fact of the matter is that this can actually be a very effective means of diffusing an argument. If things are getting heated during discussion with your partner and it looks like you're not going to reach a happy ending anytime soon, then it's best to shut it down and revisit the topic tomorrow. Sometimes this can be enough to allow cooler heads to prevail, making the topic go away altogether. Other times it's a much needed break that can calm tempers down so that you can revisit the discussion again the following day. All you need to do to put this overnight break into practice is just to say something like, look, we're clearly both getting emotional over this, so let's both sleep on it and revisit the discussion tomorrow when you get home from work. And this is actually a tactic that my wife and I use fairly often when we find ourselves in a more serious disagreement, and more often than not, it works like magic. So let go of the belief that you should never go to bed angry, because doing so is actually a very effective strategy to prevent arguments from getting out of hand in the first place. Number 2, propose potential solutions. One of the biggest mistakes that I see my clients make when they're arguing with their spouses is that they offer lots of criticism and complaints, but no real solutions or suggestions to make the problem go away. So let's go back to the example that I mentioned earlier. Say your spouse always avoids attending social gatherings with your family, and you want him or her to join for the occasional family dinner. So instead of simply saying, I hate how you never come to my parents or visit with my family, which is basically just whining, try pairing every complaint or criticism with a potential solution. So in this case, you might say something like, I know you don't really enjoy visiting with my family, but it would be really great if you could just try to come for dinner at my parents' place every so often. How about we agree you'll come to dinner with my family on special holidays like Christmas, Easter, and Thanksgiving? By suggesting a specific solution that would make you happy without forcing your spouse to completely cave to your demands and do what he or she may not want to do, you're no longer simply nagging or complaining. Now you're outlining a potential solution to the problem, making it clear that you've considered your partner's feelings and thought about ways to resolve things that don't involve drastic changes for your spouse. I always recommend pairing any complaint or criticism with an idea or even a partial idea for how to come to a mutually agreeable solution. This often works very well, but even if your partner doesn't accept your suggestions, at least you've put in the effort and attempted to work towards a positive outcome. Number 3, bust out your comedy skills. Now, this particular tip isn't really appropriate for the most serious discussions, but if you're in an argument over something silly, dirty dishes on the kitchen counter, for example, then humor can be an incredibly effective way to diffuse things and bring a little perspective to the argument. All you have to do is just make an appropriately timed joke or an amusing comment when things are starting to get out of hand. And honestly, it doesn't even have to be that funny. A bad pun or a silly joke is usually just fine because it lightens the mood and it helps both you and your partner see the bigger picture. I mean, let's say you're arguing with your spouse about whose job it is to do the dishes, for instance. When things spiral into a yelling match, you could make a joke about how you tried to get the cat to help load the dishwasher, but things got pretty hairy. Something dumb like that. I know that's not actually funny at all, really, but it'll do the job and hopefully it'll get your partner to at least crack a smile. Studies have proven that humor in general can dramatically calm tensions and allow both parties in a conflict to back down. So give it a try next time you find yourself in an escalating argument with your spouse. All right, this video is getting pretty long here, so I think I'll stop here for today. If you have any questions about how to prevent arguments in your marriage, feel free to leave them in the comment section below this video, and I'll do my best to give you some advice. I also offer a one-on-one marriage coaching to a select number of clients. If you're more interested in learning about my personal coaching program, please visit marriageguy.com/coaching. Thanks very much for watching, and thanks also for your likes and subscribes. The support is very much appreciated. All right, that's it for now. We'll see you next time.